Welcome to the Mother Daughter-ish podcast. It's your mama's favorite podcast.
And the podcast your daughter always wanted.
This is Miss Dawn.
And Angelique.
From the 713. Houston, y'all. Get connected and stay connected weekly as new shows debut on Sunday, Wednesday, and please check out our Saturday Out and About showcases.
Enjoy the show. Please subscribe, like, share, comment, and tell every woman on the planet that you know about our show.
Here's our show for today. Mothers and daughters, let's talk about contract work. When a lot of people tell me that they hear about the word contract, they always think about like contractors, like construction, real estate development, things like that. But what they don't realize is that there's literally a contract for anything that you could possibly think of. Now, I've been doing contracts for more than 30 years. And the reason I say more than 30 years is because my oldest daughter is 31 years old, and I can remember doing different services. And I'm going to tell you how I got started. And it's the old school way. And I would even say the non-conventional way, because nowadays, to put the type of work in that I would say we used to do a while back, a lot of people are not willing to, do it that way anymore. But I started because I started volunteering. And the reason I started volunteering is because I wanted to get into different places that, unless you knew somebody or somebody knew you, you typically were not going to get into those places. So I started volunteering with different expos and different medical organizations, different nonprofits, different corporations, different theater type of things, different big events that would be going on. I just started volunteering. And then, of course, you know what happens when you volunteer. For example, when I volunteered for the Super Bowl here in Houston many, many years ago, back in the early 2000s, I volunteered very specifically. I volunteered for the celebrity chef night with the team players. And then I volunteered for the Houston Marathon. And the Houston Marathon is a really big deal. And I volunteered for the executives' breakfast, just volunteering, helping them with getting to the right places, knowing where the food was. Hospitality, basically, that's kind of like my thing, registration and hospitality if I'm going to volunteer. As a matter of fact, I just got an opportunity to volunteer on a ski trip for 2026. And I was like, I think I want to do that because last year they had 1,600 people there. And to be able to meet all of these different ski groups, it's really awesome. And that group is called Ski Jammers, and it's for black skiers. And I just thought that was very interesting. I've been a member for a few years now, since 2023, but I heard about it way back in 2010. No, I'm not a skier, but I'm willing to learn. However, I do snowmobile, so I love to snowmobile. So I started out as volunteering so that I could get in the know, I could meet people, I could network, I could see how things were run behind the scenes. I also volunteered for many years with T. Harv Eker, who used to own Peak Potentials. And Peak Potentials was an amazing way to be able to build your mindset in business. He was a multimillionaire who sold many businesses. He purposely started businesses just to sell them. As a matter of fact, he ended up selling his business that taught people how to sell their business for many $1 billion. As a matter of fact, he sold it to the Sang Group, S-A-N-G. And if you know anything about the Sang Group, they used to produce the largest business event seminar that there ever was. And it was always in New York City. And actually, it was always on my bucket list. I just never went because I was involved in some of the other big seminars that were happening. But I started out, like I say, the old school way, which was volunteering. And what I learned volunteering is that there is some sort of contract for every niche there is out there. And what I mean by that is, let's just say you're a hairstylist. You could be a hairstylist to women, or you could be a barber to men, sometimes women as well. there's a contract for that. You'd probably say, well, how? Well, let's say you partner with an organization that deals with low-income children or lesser income groups, homeless people or whatever. You can partner with those coalitions. You can do the hairstyles, haircuts, or whatever you want to call it, and they would get grants and sponsors and things like that to pay for your services. So let's just say you partnered with, let's just think of any kind of hair care product. You partner with them, and not only do you use their products, but you partnered with them and they gave you $100,000 to do $100,000 worth of haircuts or hairstyles for the year. Now, that's a contract, because that contract would basically say, we're giving you this much money to do this many hairstyles, and we're going to be your sponsor, let's just say for a year, 2 years, 5 years, or something like that. So when it comes to contracts, you got to think about your purpose. And when it comes to like service contracts, you have to think about what kind of agreements that you want really in place to perform particular tasks that you want to do. For example, if it's a cleaning contract, you know that the cleaning services are raking in right now with the corporate contracts and the small business contracts and cleaning their facilities and things like that. You've got your maintenance contracts. Let's just say you have someone that you know that is excellent at home maintenance. They could partner with apartment complexes and contract their services out to them so that they would be on call, basically, that if anything happened, they would be the one to go and fix it. So the way that kind of works is that they get a particular stipend every month, even if there's work or no work, and then they get paid for the work that they actually do so that they can retain and be able to say, yes, we have a 24-hour maintenance person, don't worry. And then my lane is in the consulting lane. So if you consult on anything, whether it's business, whether it's personal development, whatever it is, consulting can be in so many lanes. As a matter of fact, let me just kind of give you an example. Let me just I just want to give you just a little view. Okay, so when it comes to consulting, you can think about it like this. You can think about it by industry or sector, and it could be business consulting. It can be management consulting. It could be financial consulting. I have people approach me all the time that say they want to do financial literacy. And I say, you should really call it financial consulting, because you can tackle the adults and the children. You can really help whole families, advising them on their budget and forecasting and investing, whatever it is that your lane is in. This particular gentleman, his lane was in investing. So I said, you definitely need to go after some of those contracts with different, I gave him a list of 3 entities. I said, because I just saw a contract for that investment part. So this is perfect for you. He's been doing it for 13 years. He's very experienced. He comes with an entire workbook. He has his own company that's been set up for many, many years. He's very global. So I thought he would be perfect for that. So financial consulting is something that people forget, that if you know anything about numbers, especially think about folks who do taxes, they could literally take their tax company and they could branch it off into so many areas. Because I find that there are tax people who do general W-2s and those type of taxes and work with small businesses, and then you have those who work with nonprofits. So there's all kind of ways you can expand even having a tax business. But then also there's IT consultants. So if you know anything about information technology, I don't know if you realize it, but that is one of the hottest consulting opportunities you could probably think of, especially like even my niece. She does medical coding and billing and has since she graduated from high school. She's now, almost 40 years old, but she has now just added cybersecurity to her resume. She got her certificate and she's going to be now helping the medical industry with that. Now, I'm telling you, that is huge, especially if you can implement any kind of software, anything like that, that's huge. So human resources consulting, I just literally applied for a contract for my son for human resources consulting. So I'm telling you, that one is a big one. Marketing consulting, I'm applying for a contract right now for another team for marketing consulting, and this is going to be in a whole different region. Legal consulting, so let's just say you're an attorney or you have any type of legal sense. You can talk to people about legal risk and compliance and things like that. Grant consulting, done that. Educational consulting, healthcare consulting, environmental and sustainability consulting, government contract consulting, which is literally what we're talking about today, diversity, equity, and inclusion I think that's still a thing in some places, especially if you want to talk things about workplace culture and bias training strategies and things like that, because it does happen. Yes, it does happen. Nonprofit consulting. And so then, if you want to talk about as far as service models, you have strategy consulting, project based consulting, retainer based consulting. There's so many ways that you can take consulting and break it up. It's like having a piece of pie and you cut that pie up into 30 pieces and you figure out which piece you want. Have you ever done that? Have you ever looked at, like, for example, a piece of cake and you see these memes on Facebook or Instagram that says which, and they'll cut it up in several different strategic places. Like they'll cut right in the middle, then they'll cut the end, and then they'll cut the edge, and they'll say, well, which piece is the best piece? I particularly like the edge piece because it usually has more icing on it. It just is prettier, things like that. So that's kind of how I am. But yeah, contracting can be in so many different ways. So you have your server contract. We talked about, your consulting, your maintenance, and your cleaning services. And I'm going to tell you right now, with the cleaning service, one of the keys to that is having a good team. Two, being able to be flexible in your hours, because I've seen a lot of cleaning people that I've helped get contracts for that actually clean at nighttime. They don't even start until 9 or 10 at night, which sometimes they may work up until 2 or 3 in the morning, but they're being paid very, very well. But I say having a team, being flexible, and of course the number one thing is being able to know how to even apply for the contracts. But other than having a team and being flexible, I would say definitely having great products that when I walk in the next day working at that company, that I'm like, oh, it smells so good in here. Like that's what you want people to say every time they walk into that office the next day is, oh my gosh, it smells so good, especially like the executives' offices or something like that. That's the one thing I can say is when I've had to visit people in the hospital, I walk down from one room to the next, and oh my gosh, the cleaning supplies that they use at some of the hospitals, it just is so nice and fresh and not harsh smelling at all. So then also think about if you have anything to do with sales contracts are amazing. And I'm not talking about contracts that are commission based. I'm talking about contracts that are literally agreeable sales based and goods of like property or something like that. For example, bill of sale, purchase agreement, things like that. So that would be more of like, think of like a title company. So something like that. And then you have your lease agreements. So you could lease cars, you could lease equipment, you could lease residential places or things like that. Those all involve contracts. Employee contracts. So you could hire individuals that are on a 1099 and you could have non-compete clauses with them. You could have at-will agreements with them. You could have some type of offer letter that you give to them. I'll never forget when my son got a position at a Fortune 500 company and he said, Mom, I need you to read this offer letter because I get it and I saw the numbers, but I just want to make sure that the wording is right because I don't want to just look at the numbers and say yes. He said, because the numbers are great. So I read through everything with a fine-tooth comb. I asked him a couple of questions and he was okay with those things. I wasn't concerned. I just needed him to understand what it was saying. And that contract ended up biting him in the butt in the end after 3 years because it had a very strong non-compete that said, okay, you can't do this for so long. I think those type of things are thrown out with the new laws and everything, but just the fact that they can stifle you for 2 to 3 years after you work for them. You could not go and work, for example, for one of their competitors, which this particular company had quite a bit of competitors because they literally tried to buy up every single company worldwide. And then you have your construction contracts, which is when I say contracts, a lot of people think about construction. They think about the cost of materials and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't have anything to do with it. Just keep in mind, though, when you do a contract, that you don't be one-sided. I'll give you a great example. I've trained individuals on how to get their speaking careers going and where to find speaking opportunities and just done the whole research for them and help them and coach them through the whole process and everything and how to set up their contracts. And one thing that was in common in every single person that I helped in the past is that they all had a one-trick pony. And here's what I mean by that. They all had what the cost was for them to come and speak. When they were done with it and showed it to me, I said, we're going to change this contract up a little bit. And they're like, what? Okay, so first of all, are there any particular things that you must have? For example, are there things that you need in your room? Or is there a particular type of water that you like? Like, you have to put things in there that you like because you want to be pleased when you get there. There's some people who are, low maintenance and don't need all those things, and I completely understand. The next thing I said, okay, there has to be a flat fee to get you there. Okay? And I'm going to tell you why I'm telling this person this, because after they told me what they had done prior to, I'm going to show you how they walked away with barely $100, which is ridiculous. So this person had a flat fee, and that was it. I said, so we're going to break this down. Here's what your flat fee is. Here's what your flight is. Here's what your hotel is. Here's what your ground transportation is, round trip. Here's what your miscellaneous fee is. And that miscellaneous fee is for your food and your beverages and things like that. This person is like me and didn't drink alcohol, so that wasn't a factor. So in the past, that person had a particular fee, and I won't even say what it is because it's so ridiculous. That person had a particular fee, and by the time they took an assistant with them, the assistant walked away with more money than the person who did the speaking. Okay? The money got eaten up in flight for both. The money got eaten up in hotel for both. The money got eaten up in taxis and rental cars. The money got eaten up in paying for 2 meals a day for her and the assistant. So literally she was walking away every time with $100 or $200. And I told her, I said, that's really ridiculous because you should have a flat fee that's yours and no one else's to get you on the stage. And then everything else is their responsibility so that you can be the best version of you on that stage to impress the thousands of people that they've invited there. So after we changed that, within a year, she was like, oh my gosh, you were right. She said, I'm actually walking away with real money. And I had taken her speaking fee and tripled it. Not because of all the things I added in it, but because her standard fee was so low that I was embarrassed for her. 2 more things I added on to her speaking fee is if she has a book, here's what they call in bulk. And she did have a book, just never sold it, never tried to get it on the seats of every person there. And then the cost for her assistant if she had to bring one. There were times when she was just gone for a day and she didn't have to bring it. But when you're doing 3-day workshops and keynote seminar and all that, you do need help. You do need help. They're not going to appoint volunteers 85% of the time. So licensing agreements can also be contracts because let's just say you have a particular software or something that you've trademarked or a book or something like that that you want to license out to people. So you could license, you probably say, well, who could I license it out to? You could license out your material to schools. You could license it out to corporations. You can license it out to many different people, especially if that's property that you already owned before you went into an agreement with a particular entity. Now, the case could be made. Let's just say you get a contract with a government entity and that contract goes on for a year or 2 and then you decide, wait a minute, I'm really an expert at this thing. I'm really an expert at this HR thing. I'm going to go ahead and write a book about HR. They could easily say, well, from the experience that you had with us, this is how you were able to write this book. It's the same way Anita Baker's husband was able to get most of her money in royalties because he said that they were together for all those years and that he was the inspiration to those songs. He helped her with fleshing out the songs. He helped her with arranging the songs. He listened to her practice the songs, so he was a part of everything. So you have to really step back out of yourself and look at how these things actually happen. So then, as far as contracts, you can think about partnerships and joint venture agreements, loan agreements, non-disclosures, NDAs, and then grant agreements. So I believe in having contracts and agreements for everything, but specifically today, we're going to be talking about service contracts, okay? And I want to talk about service contracts because you don't realize that you have something that somebody's willing to pay for right now today. And you probably say, well, how do you know that? And the reason I know that is because I meet people every single day that are doing what you should be doing. Let's say you're an amazing speaker. You could use your speaking voice for training, for workshops, for leadership development, for all kinds of things. You can use your voice to lead hosting opportunities and be paid to do that. Okay? So there are so many types of services that you could have that you're just not utilizing those services. Let's say you're really, really, really good at developing software. Oh my gosh, there's so many entities that could work with you. I could show you 3 right now. I'm talking about just in this last 7 days, entities that are looking for IT software developers. Now, typically the way that works is if you develop the software for them, they own everything, the copyright and everything. As a matter of fact, I was going to start a t-shirt business with a gentleman. I'm not going to say his name or the company he works for, but I'm just going to say he's in engineering, and he got paid, I think, about $250,000 a year, but here's the caveat to that. Anything that he developed in this company, they owned it. So every piece of his intellectual property, that company owned it simply because he was their employee. And I talked to him about it, and I said, well, is there a way that you could become a subcontractor and they just pay you a licensing fee on all these amazing things that you're doing? He said the last person at that company who brought it up, they got rid of him. I'm going to take it that the answer to that was no. What if you have a propensity and you have a great creative eye and you design websites? You could do that under a contract basis for tons of entities. What if you are a photographer? I just literally saw something for Humble ISD and some of the other ISDs that were looking for photographers. You know, they always love on-site photographers for their yearbook. They always like people to be able to capture things on a daily basis for that, or on a weekly basis. You know that they also love to have their memorabilia for whatever school year it is. So if you have, I was thinking the other night, I said, I wish I had the ability to do something unique with photography. I'm great at taking photos. I'm great at video. I'm great at getting people to smile, and I can hype up a crowd, no problem. I even have the equipment to do it. I just feel like when it comes to settings and things like that on cameras to make it look better, I don't know anything about it. At some point, I am going to teach myself, though, because I can see where it would be very, very, very valuable. Let's say you love education and training. Education and training is amazing. I have seen more ads on Instagram in the last 30 years about starting your own educational programs and getting contracts than I have ever seen in my entire life, especially if you have any type of tutoring service, whether it's by group or it's by one-on-one. If it's with an academic institution, there's so many, think about it, that right now there are so many K through 12 schools that are still 100% online. I'm not saying go and become an employee. I'm saying contract your services out. What if you love professional development and training? You could do workshops, conferences, custom training sessions. What if you know how to develop curriculum? I just saw with Harmony Charter Schools that they were looking for someone to develop their science curriculum. And I was like, I wish I knew somebody. So creating educational materials are wonderful. And I don't want you to think that, oh, well, we have to follow the TEK, Texas Education Knowledge protocol. Yes, but think about it. A lot of schools are really, really, really smart to be focusing on extracurricular out of school activities. So let's just say you had a financial literacy program or a reading literacy program, or you had something to do with STEM or STEAM, and you wanted to bring a curriculum for that. You could be the queen of that. I have a client right now who just told me that she created the very first ever curriculum for a juvenile detention center in Georgia. You know how big that is? I'm sure they took that curriculum and put it across the board. And that's why I told her, I said, update whatever you created and recreate something even better with the times that we live in now, because I think she did that 10 years ago or maybe 7. If you're good at administrative type duties or any type of office services, think about virtual assistants, admin support teams. There's still so many companies that have employees that are working from home. What about being a team leader to support and mentor those that are working from home? They need support too, because it's lonely sometimes when you work from home. I've been working from home since the 90s. I know what I'm talking about. Sometimes if you don't get out there and actively are networking and meeting people, it can get very lonely. Help those remote clerical and administrative support teams. They need it. They need it. And I've seen opportunities where they're willing to pay upwards of $100,000 for you to mentor their team, support their team, encourage their work from home teams that are global. One company I saw, they were looking to do a contract with anybody who could support their team in Dubai. And I was like, ooh. And then you could think of a reason that you need to travel to Dubai to meet them face to face. I was, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And I think they had a team of like 70. So I think you could get to 70 people in a week and earn that salary under a contract basis. Even when I was in the Middle East back in December of 24, I went to a business meeting and I was talking to some people and they were like, man, you should bring some of your programs over here. If you came over here and stayed just 3 months, you could make $500,000. And I was like, okay, give me the information. And I took the information and I put it on my desktop and I said, when my mind is ready, I'll do it. I remember back in the day when, I don't know about you, but a lot of my friends, when we were in middle school, we always wanted to take typing courses. By the time I was an adult, I could type 250 words a minute. Not so much now, maybe half of that. But data entry, if you know anything about data entry and document management, you know how to work Excel spreadsheet and all of these PowerPoint presentations and all that, you could win at that by helping people. Because listen, a lot of companies are not like small businesses. They don't mind delegating out just to digitize everything, organize everything, manage records and things like that. They don't mind doing it. I was at a doctor's office one time, and back in the day, we used to call them, I'm doing air quotes, we used to call them a Girl Friday, because that Girl Friday would just come in on Fridays and organize everything so that the next week could go well. So a Girl Friday would come in on Fridays. She would make sure that the files were organized. She would make sure that all the clients that they were going to see the previous week, those files were pulled and ready and separated to whatever, physician or assistant they were going to see. And she would make sure that just everything was organized. She maybe work about 4 to 6 hours. And they used to call them, I know it sounds weird, but they used to call them a Girl Friday. And she made pretty good money by working on Fridays. Typically was a housewife, or typically was the physician, their wife, or somebody's girlfriend, or somebody's wife, or something like that, or just a simple employee that maybe only could work once a week because they could send the kids to the mom's day out while they come and earn a little bit of money for themselves. Because no matter what you say, every woman that's a homebody woman still needs her own money. There's just some things that we don't want to have to go to a man and ask money for, like our nails and maybe eyelashes and, maybe a chemical peel or whatever. We don't want to have to ask somebody for that. So if we can earn a few $100s a month, it was great. So I used to love to meet the Girl Fridays because they would just be zipping around and just so happy and young, and just it was a time. It was a time back in the 80s and 90s. It was a time. It was a real cute time up until about 2010. It was a real cute time. But if you are a specialist in anything that has to do with health and wellness, especially if you are a health and wellness coach, you could definitely contract those services out, especially if you have a niche in mental health, especially as a mental health advocate, a nutritionist, a fitness consulting or coach, and anything that has to do with any kind of personal care services, especially if you want to do hygiene and etiquette, let's just say in elementary and middle school. That is where they really, really, really need to be talking about hygiene and etiquette. I would say more etiquette in elementary and more hygiene in middle school, because middle school, they really, really harp on the PE and getting sweaty. And a lot of girls, like I can tell you right now, when I was in middle school or even whatever school, high school, whatever, I never ran the track and then took a shot. I was not getting naked in nobody's locker room. It was never going to happen. As a matter of fact, I wore my PE shorts under my skirt or my pants just so I could take those off and put them right back on, because I was not getting undressed all the way down. in the locker room for anybody. It was never going to happen. I'm that way today. What if you have personal care service? I just saw a contract for personal care attendants with the Houston Galveston Area Council. So that is actually a thing. So if you don't mind taking care of elderly or disabled individuals, it could be children or whatever, and you want to get paid for their home care attendant services, there are literally contracts out there. It could be on a simple matter of caregiving, like I say, elder care or home health services. You don't have to own a home health service to be a home health attendant. It's two different things. Home health service agents hire home care attendants. Qualifications: compassion, empathy, and a GED at least. And sometimes the GED is not even necessary. You don't need anything. But I would definitely suggest that if you're interested in that, I would suggest that you at least get some kind of caregiver training, because a lot of caregivers get left behind and they get worn out, and there's nobody there for them. So there are teams that are literally there as advocates for them. Now, you know that the beauty and personal service, personal care service industry is huge, huge, huge. And I remember I had a lady that used to do my hair. She ended up getting a contract with the Houston Rockets, and she did all of the girls' hair. And she made very, very, very good money because, the girls have to look good every game. So she would go and do their hair, their makeup. And then also, let's just say you're a massage therapist. You could get massage contracts with the different athletic companies, or you could hire out your services to other beauty industries like spas and all of those type of things. So I'm just telling you, it really doesn't matter what you think you want to do. There's a contract for it. You want to do photography and videography? There's a contract for it. You want to do graphic design? There's a contract for it. You want to do event planning for weddings, for showers, for engagements, coordinating all the logistics for that? There's a contract for it. Putting timelines together for brides? That's a whole industry right there. Consulting a bride is a whole industry, especially one that's like, I just want everybody else to take care of everything. That's a whole industry right there. So I will leave you with today to ponder and ask yourself just one question. It's not hard. Where do you fit in? Service, sales, leasing, construction, licensing, partnerships and joint ventures? Where do you fit in? Where do you fit in? Think about, like, what are you doing right now? Are you sewing? If you're sewing, there are people right now looking for seamstresses. You could be the seamstress that sews all the clothes for a whole theater show at the Houston Theater. Are you a wig maker? You could be the person that partners with MD Anderson and create custom wigs for cancer patients who've lost their hair. Are you a massage therapist? You could be the masseuse for athletes who are recovering from an accident or from some type of rehabilitation issue. You could work in a rehabilitation location under contract. Are you a nutritionist? You could work with doctors who have diabetic patients and help them to get their nutrition better. Are you a nail tech or a podiatrist? You could work with individuals who have diabetes with their nails and toes. Or if you're a nail tech, you could partner with some of the school districts and build you an entire glam squad for those girls who can't afford to go to prom. You could get a sponsor to pay you to do those girls glam for them. Think about it. Where do you fit in? Where do you fit in? Ask yourself, where do I fit in? What do I want to do? Start a mobile IV company? You could partner with clinics and doctors and all types of entities, one-on-one clients in, let's just say, the wealthy areas where they want their services in-house and not out. Where do you fall in when it comes to consulting? What's the thing that you know? Are you excellent at summarizing books? You could be a book consultant where you put your notes out there and you make people pay for the cliff notes. Remember when we used to go to the bookstore back in the day and we would get what they call the cliff notes? If we were too lazy to read something in full, 300, 400, 500 pages in a week, we just go to the library and get the cliff notes. And then from the cliff notes, it would highlight everything that we really needed to retain. And then we could take the test from there. Anybody used to do that? Huh. Could you partner in with some corporations or small businesses? What about with nonprofits and write grants locally, globally, national? What about just managing the grants? I've seen contracts for that where they get the money in, they have their team, but you manage the flow of them. Manage their budget. Manage their reporting process. It's a whole business. So I need you to sit back and think about, what is it that you should be paid for? I literally just did a class about a month ago. And before the class even got started, my first question was, what is it that you should be paid for? Now, I had 12 people on Zoom. And my question was, what should you be paid for? I take that back. 12 people signed up, but I think 6 or 7 came. I asked the question, what should you be paid for? Everybody was shy. After I asked it 5 times, one person said, I should be paid for speaking. I should be paid for coaching. I should be paid for consulting. I actually license people, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, why did it take you 5 times for me to ask over a span of... I didn't even start the class until they told me what Jay should be paid for. Now, we're talking about 2.5-hour class. I didn't start it until I needed them to tell me. Even out of that, 4 people still never told me what they should be paid for. I'll tell you something. If you don't know what you should be paid for, then nobody's going to pay you. Because if you don't know, guess what? They don't know. So if you have a pen and paper today, sit down and think about what you do as a hobby. I'm going to tell you something that's going to sound crazy. I knew a lady that sewed clothes for dolls. Dolls, D-O-L-L-S. And she loved to dress dolls. She would go to thrift stores and buy dolls, and she'd buy new dolls and redress them in retro, vintage type clothing. She would create these things from different materials and things that she would buy and dress them in vintage. Became a whole business for her. Because now you can make your own dolls and sell them. How do you think the Bratz dolls came in and wiped out the whole idea of the Barbie dolls at one time? I came from an era of Barbie dolls. My youngest daughter, who's 24, she's a Bratz girl. The Bratz girl were cooler. They had a shape to them. They had the nice, pretty lips. They were gorgeous, everyday looking, gorgeous girls. I think they call them, whatever. But they just look different from Barbie. Barbie was always skinny and perfect and typically blonde, Bratz came in and said, oh no, we can be short, we can be thick, we can be brown as we want to be. Our hair can be long. We can have these big, beautiful, pouty lips and eyelashes and bright doe eyes, So my daughter, she loved the Bratz dolls. So those were the ones that she went after. Me, when I was growing up, it was either Barbie doll or baby doll, and I didn't really care for baby dolls because that sounded like a lot of responsibility. Because the baby doll, you put the bottle in their mouth, push out the water, and then the water came out the day. I was like, oh my gosh, this is too much work. I can't do it. But just think about how that simple thing took this lady from sewing clothing and dressing her own dolls. I think she had over 2,000 dolls in her house. She had a whole room just for her dolls. And I think she lived out in Pasadena somewhere. And Pasadena, Texas. And because I know there's a Pasadena, California. But that was something that she turned into a contract opportunity. Amazing, right? Think about it. You have an idea to create something. Guess what? Create it. You have a book that you've written and it's for a particular industry. Sell the book in that industry until you can't sell no more. Guess what? The first part of the job is for you to write the book first. Decide what industry it's for and go after that. Do you know there's literally people who have written books that didn't write them to be a bestseller, who didn't write them for the general public, but that wrote them because maybe they were a speaker and they speak with a certain group. Let's just say they speak only to women. Their books are focused on women. Let's say they speak only to ministry leaders. Their books are only for ministry leaders. Let's say they only do things for pets. Then their books are for dog lovers and pet lovers, I should say. Because you could have a dog, a cat, fish, whatever. For example, when I joined my Mini Cooper Club, I discovered there were so many books for Mini Coopers, to the fact that I'm doing a book for Mini Coopers from my perspective. And I'm excited about it. I'm so excited about it. I can't even tell you. But that's our show for today. I just wanted to talk to you and expand your mind about thinking about contracting your services out. Again, what should you be paid for? I'm going to give you like a minute to think about what you should be paid for. What is that thing you're already doing that you're frustrated because you're not being paid properly for it? Because you might say, well, I'm being paid to do toes. Okay, but are you being paid properly? Contracting can help you to be paid properly. Are you speaking in elderly centers for free right now? Figure out who holds the contract. Just a little hint. Check out your counties. Check out your cities. Check out your state. Just check them out. I've done that contract. Are you a painter and you want to commission your work on contract basis to museums? Do it. You probably say, well, how am I going to get into a museum? You figure out who will allow you to do it. You call everybody you think, even if it's a small local museum and a boutique. Figure it out. The opportunities are there. You just never had anybody that probably wanted to tell you. Just like when I got started. Nobody wanted to tell me about nonprofit. Nobody wanted to tell me about grants. Nobody wanted to tell me about contracts. Nobody wanted to tell me about how to sell my services. Nobody wanted to tell me about how to certify a woman-owned business. Nobody wanted to tell me how to get all the other different certifications to be qualified. Nobody wanted to tell anything. The famous thing they would always say is, oh no, you don't want to do this. And I would have an out-of-body experience and say, well, that's interesting because you're doing it and you're doing it with your family. So why would you put your family in a situation that doesn't serve them? And that's when I knew there was something bigger happening that I needed to go and find out about, and that's what I did. That is exactly what I did. Well, that's my show for today, and I hope that you have gotten some idea on what you want to be paid for. You want to be paid because you know how to do oil changes? Well, we know those exist. You want to be paid because you have an idea on shoemaking? Well, we know shoes exist. You have an idea for a new makeup line? A little hint. There's only a few makeup houses in the world, and you could white label it and put your name on it, and now you have your own makeup line. Just like Rihanna. Just like Maybelline. Just like, Almay, or whoever all these other people are. You can do the same thing. Your key to that is going to be marketing. That's going to be your key, marketing. Remember when Rihanna first put her makeup out and she said, oh, we have 41 shades. And folks went wild because they were like, oh my gosh, she got 41 shades. She definitely has my color. But I just saw somebody a month ago say, we have 55 colors. And I went, ooh, who are they? You gotta think about how to work smarter and not harder, and how to work hard and play hard. That's my show for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Bye for now.
Let's talk about it. I gotta admit, proud of who
You said exhale?
you
Oh my God, this
become
looks like alcohol.
and everything that you've done. Mother and daughter are always greater when they're together. Everything's better. Mother and daughter, oh, they're the greatest duo. Mother and daughter, oh, they're the greatest duo.
I don't get on TikTok like that.
It's not on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. That was on IG.
Anything you see on IG is on TikTok.